Welcome back, friends, for paintings, what is this, 17 through 20. So with this little grouping of paintings, I noticed that I was just having more fun. I'm definitely noticing a big change in what it is that I'm doing as I go through this process. And I kind of feel like I've hit my stride. I'm at the point where I feel like when I started this, each painting was about, oh, I hope this one looks okay for the video. I hope that I don't, crash and burn on this one. And now it's much less about that. And it's more about noticing along the way how the way that I do these paintings has changed, how my skills have grown. I can see a big difference in the paintings that I'm doing now versus the way that they started, as well as a big difference in the way that I do the thing or the way that I approach it. That's changed quite a bit, and I feel a lot more confident. I feel a lot less judgmental about my paintings. And another thing that I have noticed happens is I feel like a lot of times I spend time while I'm painting, especially when I'm learning something new. So I imagine you guys go through this too. But I spend a lot of that time thinking, oh, this looks bad. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, that was hard. I need to work on this. I'm really focused on what I'm not doing well. And when something turns out good, I'm like, okay, good. It's almost like a sigh of relief. I don't have to worry about that. Now I can focus on these things that I'm worried about. But I've definitely noticed a shift in that. And I'm not now sitting, looking at each painting going, oh, I don't know how I'm going to handle that. I don't know how I'm going to correct that. I don't know what to do. Instead, my focus is more on, hey, that looks really cool. Hey, I know how to do exactly what I need to do right here. Man, that part turned out really good. And then the things that I'm, unsure about, not confident with, or don't like, I tend to have the opposite reaction. It's more of a, that's, I'll deal with that later. Or I know now how to wipe it out and correct it, change it. So while this is kind of a trial by fire, right, of just forcing myself to do all of these paintings in such a short amount of time, the amount of growth that I can tell I'm experiencing is huge. It's huge. And I think that this is just such a good way to, teach yourself to do something. And another thing that I've noticed, and I think we talked about this in a previous video, but it's worth mentioning again because it's something that I hear just all the time, almost daily. How do you find your style? I'm looking for my style. I'm trying to find my style. What is my style? I don't know why we focus on that so much. Your style is what your style is. You can do things to affect your style, but for the most part, I think your style just is how you paint. I think that we waste time searching for our style, and then we end up focusing on things that don't help us learn. But if you just focus on learning and doing, your style naturally emerges. And your style's going to change as you continue to grow. So you might have, style A now, but in 6 months you might have style Z, completely different. But what your style is, it's made up of everything. There's every time you touch your art supplies, you are imprinting your style. The colors you choose are going to become part of your style. The brushes you use, the way you move your paint, the way you think about color theory, the type of subject matter you choose to paint, all of those things all of those things become part of your style, so it's not worth sitting thinking, okay, well, how am I going to develop my style? I'm going to use these kinds of brush strokes for my style. This is going to be my unique style. Only use, those kinds of brush strokes if that's what feels natural to you, if it gives you the look you want, if it's something that you can just do, like Van Gogh, for example, with the dashes in the paint, his brush strokes being the little lined up dash marks. That was part of his style. And I think if you look at his paintings, you see an evolution toward that. I doubt that he ever stopped and went, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do these dash marks that are all lined up next to each other, and that's going to be my style. There was a reason he did those dash marks, whatever it was, whether it was just the comfort with the brush or whether it was a way that his mind thought this is going to help give the kind of the impressionist look, the dash marks on top of another color are gonna help create movement, and that all became part of his style based on decisions that he made as he was developing his painting skills. And I'm definitely noticing things in my paintings that are becoming part of my watercolor style. Before, I wouldn't say that I really had a style because I was just kind of trying all kinds of things. But I'm definitely seeing things now that I feel like are developing toward a style. And what that style is, I honestly don't care. I'm just latching on to the techniques and the colors that are pleasing to me and seem natural to me, and the style will come from that. So please don't spend precious energy worrying about what your style is. Focus on learning and enjoying. Your style will come naturally. This one, the only idea I had for this one was a yellow sky. I do love a yellow sky. So I did that, and then everything else just kind of came off of that. I like that little back run you see on the right there, kind of that hard edge of the yellow. That happens when you've got a large puddle of water and it kind of pushes the pigment out to the edges. And some watercolor artists really hate that, but I really like it, and I think it almost looks like there's a cloud in the sky. So I'm perfectly happy with that. And then this tree was just all experimenting. I just really wanted to kind of see what I could do, how I could highlight that. I had started with a really dark color, which, for an acrylic artist, that makes sense. Start with your dark colors, build towards your light. But for traditional watercolorists, that's the opposite of how you do it. Traditional watercolors would start with the lightest color of the tree and work toward the dark. My brain doesn't really work like that because I've been an acrylic artist. So that's why I use a lot of white gouache, and I do paint lifting and things like that. Bucking the rules. We talked about, just completely ignoring rules before, and that's my favorite thing to do. So feel completely at ease, saying no to the rules, breaking the rules, doing it however you want. That's A-okay. Just know there is always going to be somebody who's like, that's not how you should do it. You should always do it this way. You should always do it however you want to do it. I'm a firm believer in that. I love the ground in this painting. To me, it looks really sunny, or it looks like there might be, a little ground cover with yellow flowers growing in it. I like this ground a lot. And I didn't put like any energy into the ground. It was really just there to anchor the tree to something. I didn't put a lot of thought into it, but afterwards I really like it. Right there, that's a little bit of white gouache mixed with some yellows and greens, and I'm just dripping it into areas that are still wet and letting the water move the paint around. In some places it's not wet and I'm getting edges that are a little bit more crisp. I remember a couple of videos ago I said that I wanted to work on the edges of my trees because I have a tendency to just blur things out a bit. And I feel like I could have taken more of an opportunity to work on that in this tree. But as I was painting it, I felt like if I kept going, I was going to overwork it and lose it. And I was really liking where it was, so I just kind of left it. I guess I could go back to it and add some crisper edges. And this one, I had absolutely zero idea or direction, nothing. I just grabbed a paint color that I don't use very often to see what was going on there, see what kind of inspiration took hold, and nothing was really happening. I really thought this was going to be one of the primer paintings. I've started calling them primers to myself, not failures, not abandoned paintings, but primers, because I kind of feel like these little paintings that go nowhere and I end up discarding them, they kind of feel like they're priming the pump to, to start flowing with creativity. So I kind of felt like that's what was going to happen here, that I'd end up tearing this one off and starting a new one. But it didn't happen. I'm not in love with the colors that I put in the tree, but I do feel like there's a little bit of personality in this tree, and I liked that. And I took the opportunity to just really play with the trunk, the shape and the size and the texture and detail of the trunk. And that's the part that I ended up really liking about this painting. So that's why I kept it and finished it and put it in here. But I know the blood red tree with the blue bits is a little bit creepy, but I think it turned out okay. Like I said before about wanting to keep some of these ones that I don't necessarily like because they act as a good reference for future paintings. So this is definitely a painting I might come back to and say, I really love the shape and the personality of this tree. I may not love the colors in it, but I can then use it as a reference to go paint another tree and use colors that I maybe do like a little bit more. And I don't know if you can hear that. I hope you can't, but my little kitty that we rescued during the pandemic last year, Canelo, he's laying on the couch on the other side of the room, and he is snoring loudly. So if you hear this weird squeaky sound, it's a cat snoring. He doesn't meow, so you'll never hear him meow like Mr. Moon. He just snores. Yeah, I was super, super happy with the shape of those branches. Sometimes, if you notice, when I started the tree trunk of this one, the paper was still wet. So as I put my brush with the paint through on the paper for the tree trunk and branches, it spread and changed. And that can seem frustrating, especially if you're an acrylic artist, because your paint is not doing what you said you wanted it to do. It's doing what it wanted to do. But I find it to be really exciting because it takes away a little bit of control, and then I'm forced to work with what I have. And to me, that's really exciting, and one of the reasons that I have fallen in love with watercolor. It sounds like a nightmare to control freaks, you know, paint doing what it wants to do. But I think that if you are a control freak and you can find it in you to just give in and allow it to do what it wants to do, just realize it's going to do it and it's not worth fighting. It's a really good exercise in not being a control freak. And I think that you can take that lesson into other areas of your life as well. I feel like it's helped me a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. I feel like it. I think I want to do another tree like this and make it look like there's Spanish moss hanging off of it. Because this definitely feels like a tree that would be in like an old cemetery in Savannah, Georgia to me. I think that's what I really liked about it. So remember when I said, just go with it and see what happens. Even if nothing good is happening, you have no ideas. If it's already bad, it can't get worse. Well, that's what happened with this one. And it ended up being one of my favorite paintings that I've done in this series so far. I had no ideas. Actually, I think I did start out with a little bit of an idea, but these colors I chose were weird, and yeah, it's pretty bad right here. And I thought it was going to be one of those primer paintings. And done with that, spray it out and start over. Still no direction here. But as I sat and looked at this and the way that green was spreading, I suddenly came up with an idea. And now I'm in love with this, and I may end up doing more paintings like this. In fact, there's another one in the next video. It ended up being this kind of fantasy-like clump of grass and earth and rock just like hanging in the air, and it feels really fun and exciting to me. So I'm glad that I just kind of kept going with those weird colored blobs that were doing nothing. Another thing that's happened while I've been doing these paintings, when I started out, I had to focus on, okay, I only want to use these limited color palettes, and I was really careful to make sure that I remembered exactly what colors I was using, and trying to, you know, keep the amount of colors that I used very measured. But as I've gone on, that focus has kind of gone away. I'm not really even paying attention to which colors I'm using. I know which colors, as they sit in my palette, do what. And so I'm really just kind of grabbing colors. I need a green. This is my dark green. I need a brown. This is my earthiest brown. This is a redder brown. And so it is a little bit harder for me right now to tell you guys which colors I've been using, because I may grab a color one time and then not use it again, or go back and forth between two colors that look almost exactly the same. So I'm trying really hard to remember which colors it is that I used, but I think not having that kind of hyper focus on it has allowed me to open up a little bit more and just work without so much thought and judgment. I think that when I'm focused so much on, I have to use this green, there's more judgment that goes into it. If I go to reach for the other green, then I compare the two in my head and I second guess myself. And so it's just nice to be able to say, I need green. I have 5 greens. Just grab one. It doesn't matter which one. Especially when I'm kind of working in a deadline like I am now. I have to have, X number of paintings done by this day or else I'm behind. And that day starts coming and I'm like, don't even pay attention to any of that junk. Just paint. You got to crack out, this many paintings today so that you don't fall behind. Pressure can be a really amazing motivator. It can also be a motivation killer, so be careful how you pressure yourself while painting. Things that you notice are killing your motivation, self-imposed pressures that are killing your motivation, get rid of them. If you're pressuring yourself to use 2 colors, 3 colors in a painting, and you're struggling with it, then stop doing it. If your pressure is every painting in 30 minutes, and that's killing your creativity, stop doing it. Only hold on to those pressures that are helping. And I felt like it just needed something on top, but I wasn't exactly sure what that would be. Tried doing some little grasses, but it just felt like it was getting a little messy. And I didn't really fancy the idea of going through and, doing grass blade all over the top of this little earth mound. So I decided to just start splattering some white gouache, and some white gouache mixed with some yellow for some little wildflowers. And I think that was exactly what this little painting needed. And I did a little bit of negative painting there. If you see the way I did the dark green, that kind of made it look like there were clumps of light green grass. I'm going to show you negative painting. Negative painting is so much fun. You can do it in any medium, but I find that in watercolor, negative painting is really, really helpful in bringing things to life. And there's my little wildflowers. And that's really all there is to these paintings. Thank you everyone for hanging out with me today and watching, and I hope that you're feeling a little bit of inspiration to try some watercolor. I am almost to the halfway point, and as soon as I get to the halfway point, I am going to buckle down and create that beginner watercolor video that I've been promising that I will. So it looks like we are going to have that very, very soon. And I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully, for another video.